welcome to the TYT show. I don't know why I said it like that, it just came out. That was a very weird way of opening. Hey guys, obviously Cenk isn't here, but I am gonna tell you where he's gonna be tonight in just a minute. Jobrani and Ramesh.
Srinivasan
is here. I just wanted to make sure I got it right. I'm really looking forward to the show, guys. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I hope you guys are looking forward to it. I know I am. So later on tonight, after the main show, Cenk Uygur will be on Chris Cuomo's program on CNN. Cuomo Primetime is the name of that program. So make sure you check that out. I don't know what the topic is gonna be, but I have a feeling it's gonna be fiery. So we'll see.
I have a feeling that Cenk will have a lot to say that is righteous.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely gonna have a lot to say. I'll put that out there. So make sure you check that out again on Cuomo Primetime tonight. And then later on, we are going to have, actually tomorrow, we're gonna have Dana Gould on. He is the person who made The Simpsons what it is. He is an incredible person. He's been on the show before, really smart guy. Are you by any chance familiar with him? Like
I know Dana, yeah, I've met him here and there a few times at the Improv and just doing stand up. Yeah, he's a great guy, very funny guy.
He's a really funny guy.
Yeah.
All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start with the stories. The city of El Paso, Texas is probably gonna have to deal with some serious financial instability, maybe a financial downfall, considering the fact that Donald Trump owes them about $470,000 due to a rally that he held in El Paso and never paid for. Now, why would he have to pay for the rally? Of course, there are security concerns, which the city provides. There are transportation concerns, which the city provides. And so the whole point is that the various campaigns that might be doing rallies there will pay the city back. Now, on the same day that Trump had his rally, Beto O'Rourke had his counter rally, and Beto O'Rourke has actually paid the money back already, but Donald Trump has received a notice from El Paso indicating that he needs to pay up soon or he might face some additional penalties. According to USA Today, while O'Rourke has covered costs from his counter rally, the city is still waiting for the White House to pay up. The Trump campaign remains quiet on when it intends to pay the city of El Paso. So there's been no word on if or when the campaign plans on paying back. Now, I want to read from the actual letter that was sent to Donald Trump's campaign. It said, quote, "We are contacting you regarding the past due invoices listed above. We realize this may have been an oversight on your part. However, your account with the city of El Paso is extremely past due. Further, the city may choose to not enter into a contract with an individual that is indebted to the city for more than $100. So a little threat there. A little benefit of the doubt and a little threat there, which I like.
Yeah, it sounds like it's one of those late notices you get. I have an alarm system at my house, and if the alarm goes off and the cops show up, you got to pay a little fee every time the cops come. Did you know this?
Yeah.
You know this, right? So I do my best to pay the cops the fee. So when I see campaigns like this at $470,000 and they're not paying it, and what's interesting is obviously it's not like Trump sitting there opening up bills and going like, "Oh, I'm late on my rally bill."
Right.
But it seems like he's notorious for being cheap and not paying stuff. It seems like his whole campaign is, and the people that work for him, because there's got to be somebody there who is in charge of paying for the rallies. And they didn't pay for the rally.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think a lot of Americans realize that on some level, Donald Trump is immoral. But I think the real point here, or at least amoral, lacking any sense of morality. But I think the real point is that on almost every single economic level, the guy is a failure, right?
Yeah.
His business is a failure. His taxes are a failure, and the fact that he can't even reveal them speaks to the fact that they're a failure, and that he can't even pay back a city and its workers also, right? This is paying workers who worked on this rally.
So now there's talk of how they can recoup the money in other ways, because I mean that's a pretty giant sum of money for a city, right? I mean it's not a small sum of money. And so they're thinking about moving some things around and making do until they hopefully will get the money from Trump. But again, he hasn't really responded to any of the requests for comment from the media. He hasn't responded to the notice that was sent from the city of El Paso. And I also want to note that when this rally took place in February, he, of course, as he always does, caused a lot of chaos because during the rally, he said some things about El Paso that simply were not true. And the next video is going to help you kind of see the difference between his rally and Beto O'Rourke's rally and some of the lies that Trump spread. Take a look.
The president repeating the false claim that crime dropped in El Paso after the border wall went up.
I spoke to people that have been here a long time. They said when that wall went up, it's a whole different ball game. Is that a correct statement? Whole different ball game. Went way, way down.
But the reality is, crime in El Paso dropped long before the wall. The claim enraging many, from O'Rourke.
El Paso has been the safest city in the United States of America, not in spite of the fact that we're a city of immigrants, but because we are a city of immigrants.
To El Paso's Republican mayor.
What is the message from El Paso to President Trump?
We need to control our borders, but there are other ways to do it besides just focusing on that single physical barrier.
So the mayor of El Paso also did, a little media tour to talk about what the reality is for El Paso, and he's said over and over again, and I think it's politicians actually on both sides who have said this over and over again. It's not just about a wall, right? The wall isn't going to solve the problems that we're facing right now, and for him to put all of his eggs in that basket and then completely defame the city as like this crime-ridden place it's incredibly insulting. So there was that controversy, and then you add a massive amount of money that Trump owes them, and it's just insult to injury.
If he were going to be honest in that rally, he should have said, "We don't have money to pay for the wall, and I don't have money to pay for this rally. So enjoy it, keep cheering, good luck to you, Trump out." But also in that article, by the way, it indicated that other campaigns had also not paid, and for other right. It was saying during the elections. It said towards the end, it said that there was just in fairness, it had said various cities called on Trump and current Democratic president candidate Bernie Sanders and former president candidate Hillary Clinton to pay some bills for rallies during the 2016 election cycle. So it seems like it's probably more common than we think, but when it's coming from the Trump and him and his campaign, it's just the guy is just. He emanates cheapness.
Yeah. Well, yeah. One of my favorite quotes coming from Roger Stone of all people was when the whole Russia investigation was happening and there was question about whether or not there was payment to the Russians to help Trump for one reason or the other. I don't remember the specific details. The important part was the response from Roger Stone, which was Trump doesn't pay for anything.
There you go.
Right?
Imagine being someone who is essentially finds everybody around him objectionable, scared of everybody,
right?
Just want to protect my family, want to protect my business, but claims to protect the United States. But in this very context where he's on the border making a case for Americans, and painting, the other side of the border in negative terms. For him to not even take care of the Americans that are part of his rally on the border shows that he actually doesn't care about the people on the border.
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention that's kind of related to what you're saying is for someone who ran on this idea of protecting the American worker, he's shown us over and over again that he has no respect for the American worker. He certainly doesn't when it comes to trade policies. He doesn't have any compassion for American consumers who are suffering from his nonsensical trade policies. Then you have the issue of him doing this global tour, discouraging other countries from doing any business from AT&T because he doesn't like AT&T and how it's a conglomerate that contains media organizations that criticize him. It's absurd.
It's crazy that this guy, from day one, his father was paying for him. So he's never been somebody who's been paying for anything, it seems like. He seems like he's been cheap his whole life. And then it's crazy that there are people around him that will make excuses for him.
All the time.
As opposed to saying, look, the guy's cheap, let's move on. That's his characteristic. Let's move on. He doesn't want to pay for the rally. By the way, he should start charging for the rallies. Maybe he can but then maybe less people would come. So I don't know.
The one area where you give Trump credit is he gave voice rhetorically to the anger that people felt at being ripped off by this larger kind of neoliberal system that we're all embedded within. But he actually is a contradiction of all of it. He's the ultimate hypocrite. He exploited it.
Yeah, he exploited it. It was a disingenuous way of reaching out to voters, and he hoodwinked them. The thing that's most frustrating is that his base doesn't realize that they've been hoodwinked, even after all of this, which
I feel like
is what it is.
I feel like he's the kind of guy that if you went to dinner with, you'd be like, oh, he's a billionaire, he's gonna pick up the bill. But he wouldn't. He'd kind of walk out and you'd be like, where did Donald go? And you'd be like, I don't know, he left.
No, he
Go
would.
away.
No, he's the kind of guy where the bill will come and it'll just sit there. And you'll just be like,
yeah, are we gonna do this?
At least maybe you'll put your credit card down thinking, all right, fine, maybe we're gonna split it.
Yeah.
Didn't he pick up the McDonald's when he had the teams coming over to the White House? I think he only paid for the McDonald's bills.
Yeah, and he was showing off, he was bragging about it. He got a Happy Meals.
Happy Meals, exactly.
Yeah. Oh God.
So crazy. All right, we have an update on a story from last week, although I just wanna note that right now, no one really knows what's going on with this story, but I'll give you the details. Last week, it was reported that an individual who works closely with Kim Jong-un was assassinated for his failures in reaching a nuclear deal with Donald Trump. Now, this was in regard to the failed nuclear disarmament negotiations that took place in Vietnam back in February. And so Kim Hyok-chol is the North Korean official who was allegedly blamed by Kim Jong-un for not doing enough to push those negotiations through. And so it was reported by a South Korean media outlet, which was citing an anonymous source, that he had been assassinated as a result. But now there's an update to the story that I think is fascinating, and I also think that you should probably take with a grain of salt because it comes from North Korea. So without further ado, here is CNN's reporting on it.
Kim Yong-chol, the high-ranking official reportedly banished for the failed Hanoi summit, sitting just a few seats away from Kim Jong-un at an art performance over the weekend. His hands cover his face. But if this state media photo is authentic, it directly, perhaps intentionally, challenges a South Korean newspaper report that Kim Yong-chol has been dismissed and is doing forced labor, exiled by a North Korean leader furious over the stunning collapse of talks in Vietnam and President Trump's surprising walkout.
So North Korea right now is arguing that he was not assassinated, that he's actually in detention or he's being detained and they're investigating him. And to be fair, diplomats and officials from Pyongyang have been known to disappear from public view only to resurface after a period of so-called re-education. So is it possible that that's happening to him? Sure, it's possible, but we don't know because can you really trust what's coming out of North Korean media right now? And also, if he is placed in some sort of re-education camp, why is he at a fun event with Kim Jong-un?
Well, he had to cover his eyes. So you see, maybe he went to the event and they were like, but you can't watch. So he's just sitting there the whole time going like, I'm being punished. You know what I'm saying?
Stealth mode.
Well, part of the article said that he was not sentenced to forced labor, but instead kept silently in his office writing statements of self-criticism, which is hilarious.
That is pretty funny.
Remember when you get in trouble and your teacher would be like, you have to write lines? You ever do that? Yeah, so he's probably in an office going like, I messed up the summit. I messed up the summit.
I've been very, very bad.
Yeah, been very bad, very, yeah. It's crazy.
I do think it speaks to how little we know about North Korea. And I do think it's actually good that we're talking to North Korea, which is not what the mainstream media at all states. They just want to put North Korea in some sort of evil box. But at the same time, you don't go into engaging with North Korea with your eyes closed. You go into engaging with North Korea with as deep an analysis as possible of the way that country operates. And we don't know anything about it.
I don't think Trump needs to do any research or analysis because as he said right before his first summit with Kim Jong-un, he's just gonna rely on his touch.
Yeah, he goes by his gut. Yeah, he goes by his gut. Everything's by his gut. No, it's like, like you said, you got to know the country. And they were saying, apropos to what you were saying about people disappearing and coming back, it said that the Kim Yong-ju, the brother of Kim Il-sung, who was North Korea's founder, said that he disappeared for nearly 2 decades. He disappeared in the mid-70s and he reappeared in 1993.
Yeah.
That's just funny to me that obviously the guy, it's sad what's happening, but it's just funny where they're like, all right, he's gonna disappear.
I think both in this story and when we were talking about the El Paso rally earlier, we see something with Trump. A lot of his relationships and his trust is based on sort of a personal feeling, like who is it kind of like me, who's my kind of guy? It's insane how personal and private and closed off his entire worldview actually is.
He has an affinity for authoritarians. There's no question about that. He also has an affinity for people in positions of royalty or extreme power. So he has, for some reason, this obsession with getting the British royals to love him. Yeah. And it's really interesting because earlier in the week we did this story about how, he called Meghan Markle nasty in an interview. It was in audio, like we can play it and listen to it. And then after he was caught calling her nasty, he completely denied it. And I kept wondering, why is he denying it? Usually he has no problem going after women. He has no problem, especially going after women of color. He's called Maxine Waters low IQ. So I was kind of shocked that he was trying to deny it. And then I realized, he wants to be on the Queen's good side. Yeah. And it's not necessarily going to play well with the Queen
and the princes too. And the princes. The male, role models with all the money.
Yeah.
Well, he likes the macho dudes. He likes these guys that are powerful. They're dictators. He likes those guys. And as you said, it's mostly like, this guy likes me. And there's no intellectual. Again, he's not going in.
It's not analytical.
Not analytical. Like, listen, here's how Kim Jong-un has acted in the past. Here's how the country has acted in the past. Let's go have these negotiations, but just be ready for these things. Yeah. But rather, I think he's somebody who goes, no, don't read me that stuff.
That guy's a tough guy. I want to be a tough guy, even though I pretend to be a tough guy.
Let me just hang out with him. Right.
Yeah.
So I want to end this story by giving J.R. Jackson some credit. I wasn't here last week when this initial story broke, but JR did cover it, and he was skeptical, and here's some evidence of it.
And there had been, I believe, in March of this year, there was some initial reporting that there had been reprisals against some of the diplomats. It wasn't as specific, and bear in mind that as of right now, this particular report is based off of one anonymous source.
To John's point about how, there's one source with this, it's reported by one particular person. So there has been several senior officials that have said that they've reappeared after it was considered to possibly have been executed for whatever random reasons. But that's a fact. Even if this is, maybe a report that doesn't gonna get confirmed completely and verified and under all terms, the point is it has happened.
So just want to give our host some credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have our eye on the pulse.
Well,
is that what people say? No, hand on the pulse, heart on the pulse.
Hand on the finger on the pulse.
Finger on the pulse.
You were close. You were close. You were getting close.
We have something
hand.
On the pulse.
Is it the arm on the pulse? Is it I think it's the shoulder on the pulse.
Nailed it.
Yes, that's how your doctor takes your pulse. Hold on, give me your. Put your hand right here. Let me get your pulse.
Okay, we're gonna take a break, but when we come back, we have more news for you, including the specifics on Trump's UK visit. I'm gonna give you examples of how much he wants the royals to love him, and also we're gonna talk about the protests against him when we return.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TYT. I wanted to remind you that Cenk will be doing a rally in Iowa, and it's taking place on June 8th. It's in Des Moines, Iowa. It is known as the Revolution Rally, and you can go, you can watch what he has to say. It's on, again, June 8th at 3 p.m. in Des Moines, Iowa, and there's the address right there. Franklin Junior High is where it's taking place. If you're interested in more details, please go to tyt.com/rally.
And he will pay his bills for it.
Actually, that's a great point.
Right?
Will he? Are we spending money on this?
Well, there's got to be some bill. There's got to be somebody.
Like homegirl's working long hours, you know what I'm saying? Like what about a race? He's like stirring the pot, running around town having a good time. I'm over here working. Pay me.
In
anyway.
Iowa, he's not really having a good time. He's in Iowa. No offense, Iowa, but come on. Let's be honest.
Always keeping it real.
Yeah.
All right, and then of course, you guys got to check out Squarespace. If you're interested in building a website, awesome. It's a great place to go, and you're gonna get a discount of 10% if you go to squarespace.com/TYT. But if you're not considering building a website, you're crazy. Like, you gotta have a nice online profile, right? An online profile that you have some control over, and a website does just that. You get to decide what's on that website. You get to highlight all your accomplishments. You get to tell people about how great you are. Create that website.
You're not real till you have a website. We don't believe you're a real person till you have a website. Get a website.
By the way, and they also help you with SEO, which is, you want to show up in the search results when people Google you. Yeah, SEO, that is what it's called.
Yeah, search engine optimization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, did you say Oreo? That's an old callback from 2 weeks ago. Was that Oreo? Like the cookie?
Oh my God, I can't.
REO.
That story. All right. Eclectic Miscellanea says, Trump paying money he owes? LOL, if history is any guide, I wouldn't hold your breath, El Paso. Jordan writes in and says, oh, maybe you just forgot. Yeah, no, he didn't forget to pay them. He doesn't pay his bills. He didn't get rich that way.
Good point.
True. All right, let's get to his visit in the UK. During a joint press conference with Theresa May in London, Donald Trump was asked about the protests against him in London. There have been thousands of protesters who have taken to the streets to protest against him. And of course, Trump did not miss this opportunity to show the world just how delusional he is. Take a look.
As far as the protests, I have to tell you, because I commented on it yesterday, we left the Prime Minister, the Queen, the royal family. There were thousands of people on the streets cheering. And even coming over today, there were thousands of people cheering. And then I heard that there were protests. I said, where are the protests? I don't see any protests. I did see a small protest today when I came, very small. So a lot of it is fake news, I hate to say. But you saw the people waving the American flag, waving your flag. It was tremendous spirit and love. There was great love. It was an alliance. And I didn't see the protesters until just a little while ago, and it was a very, very small group of people put in for political reasons. So it was fake news. Thank you.
I just want to show everybody the kind of love that was taking place on the streets of London for Donald Trump. So what you could probably hear them chanting there was Nazi scum, and they have basically completely surrounded, completely surrounded a few pro-Trump protesters. So there was a small group of pro-Trump protesters. Things got a little heated because there were tens of thousands of anti-Trump protesters. And when they had encircled them, of course, the cops got there to protect the pro-Trump protesters. In fact, they were immediately escorted into some sort of shop so they wouldn't get hurt or whatever. I mean, it didn't seem like anyone was actually gonna try to harm them, but just in case, it was best for them to get out of that situation because things can get heated, obviously. But anyway, there were protests. There's very clearly protests. In fact, The Independent, which is a publication in the area, says tens of thousands of demonstrators take to the streets of London to raise their voices against President Trump and his divisive policies on immigration, climate change, and women's rights during the 3-day state visit to the UK.
I mean, I want to just really point out how infuriated and ready to go the British citizens are around this issue, and how people in the UK, I've been there several times since Brexit and also since Trump's election. People out there are really aggressively ready to protest. They are very angry about what happened. They understood that they've been conned and let down, both by Brexit and by the elections of folks like Trump. And there's a lot of courage out there to stand up and say this is enough. And I think that's why we see Brexit imploding in front of our eyes. But I do also want to make one other point, that though I think Trump speaking about everything that defies his very limited worldview as fake news is delusional, it also works really well with the way social media function. And this is something we've talked about before, Anna. When you sort of claim something as fake news and you put it online, you put it onto Twitter, you put it onto Facebook, what have you, it creates these two different worlds. One world where all the fans and people who not even like Trump, but people who dislike the protests and dislike liberalism, dislike the liberals, dislike progressives, get all riled up and say, yeah, it's fake news, it's fake news, it's fake news. And the algorithms reinforce the visibility of that. But then those like us who say this is ridiculous, we're stuck in our own bubbles and these algorithms are fueling that visibility. So actually this fake news stuff is a very specific, I don't know if it's an intentional strategy, but in a lot of ways it works to his advantage.
You know, to your point, it's interesting because I try to logically look at that guy and go, maybe there's something going on in his head. Like, either logically speaking, these protests I heard were smaller than the last protest, but there were still a lot of people. It was like 75,000 people. So I was saying logically, maybe he's thinking to himself, oh, well, there's less than before, so it's not that bad. Or logically speaking, maybe they pulled the USS McCain and the motorcade went another block where there's like a couple of Nazi supporters, and logically speaking is like, oh, I had supporters. Or more to the point, like you were saying, this guy is an amazing spin artist. Like he would be a great publicist. Like he should have a PR agency. It's like it's almost like he and Kellyanne, like he's like the Emperor and Kellyanne Conway's Darth Vader. You know what I'm saying? Like he's
and the architect behind it all is Steve Bannon, who's brilliant when it comes to these issues and understood the media climate and the internet climate and saw Trump as someone who could be the face of this spin.
Well, he's been doing this since he got himself on the Forbes list back in the day. When you watch that documentary on Netflix where he's calling the reporter, pretending to be some guy named Barron something, which by the way his son is named Barron. He was pretending to be named John Barron, going, oh yeah, I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Trump. Yeah, his worth is this much. So he was spinning back then. He's been spinning his whole life.
The one thing that, and Cenk I think he gets irritated when I bring this up, but because Cenk believes that there's never any strategy with Trump. There is no genius or intellect or anything when it comes to Trump, but he does have one skill, and that skill is marketing. He is a shameless self-promoter, and I would argue that is a skill. It's a skill that I don't have. I can't stand it. I can't do it. And his shamelessness, his relentlessness, and his persistence in self-promoting has really worked to his advantage. And I think that right now is a really great era for psychologists to study just the way humans behave around strongmen. Because the point that was just made about Kellyanne Conway and all the yes men that surround him, I mean, why? Yes, there's that obsession with power, but think about how miserable you have to be working in this administration. You know, like even if you're power hungry, being surrounded by all these people, all of these, like the multiple investigations, how many people have been sentenced to prison because of their involvement with Trump or because they're bad people, aside from, being involved from Trump. I mean, it's just over and over again, you keep hearing these stories about how miserable people are, but they just keep protecting him.
Well, it goes to Ramesh's point. They believe the spin, and they believe, like you said, that they're the ones who go, oh yeah, fake news, fake news, fake news. It's like you're in a cult.
You think they believe it though?
It's like they're in a cult. I honestly feel that if you were to deprogram them, take them out, and really because if you think back before when Trump first started, a lot of these people that are working with him now were highly critical, going, this guy's an idiot. He'll never be president. What the hell is he? Now he became president.
Like
all of a sudden, and then they spun. So it's a cult thing.
Yeah, in psychology, there's a term that we use called confirmation bias. It doesn't necessarily mean that you believe it as it's actually true, but if you're already angry about the world outside of you, and this person gives voice to that, you're ready to, believe the unbelievable, right?
I mean, I am curious if members of his administration actually believe the unbelievable.
And one point you made that I just want to emphasize, it's such a great point, is what he's been excellent at now and before during the election in 2016 is coming up with language that carries and travels really well, especially online. But it's like memes, right? You say crooked Hillary, wow, or crazy Bernie, or Sleepy Joe. Is that the next one?
Yeah.
Anyway, so those things actually work really well because they're packages, they're containers that travel really well.
That's true.
And they kind of rile us up. They get the dopamine going in our brains where we're either like angry or like, wow, this is funny.
And also to that point, they took the term fake news and they spun it. Because fake news was supposed to be the news about the pizza, the pizza restaurant, Pizzagate, right?
Yeah, it was the disinformation campaign that was largely contributed to by the Russians. And that's. That's not Russian fear-mongering. That's just all, at this point, universally accepted based on the intel that we have. And he took that, and this is what I'm talking about when it comes to marketing. Yes, he reappropriated it for his own purposes and is relentless with it. I hear him say fake news more than I hear any politician say anything else.
It's a powerful media strategy. You need the mouthpiece, you need the mechanism, you need the system. So I mean, maybe Trump, as Cenk thinks, is not that intelligent in and of himself, but he's the right front man for this sort of system.
And if you were a sincere person, you see, I think part of that too, but the part of the problem you're talking about, there are people who get out of the what was it, McManus, who was the general who left? He was
Mattis.
Mattis. Yeah. There are people who get to the breaking point and they go, I can't take this anymore. I'm out. Their principles come through. And if you were someone who was actually had deep principles and deep thoughts, you probably would get out. But this is, I think, it's a very just on the surface kind of thing. And like you said, it's survival and it's a game for him. And he tweets about from serious stuff all the way to silly Academy Awards or whatever. And like you said, he just wants to get all his people on and go, you see, Oprah is a bad person or whatever that he's attacking at that point.
I mean, online, some studies show that fiction outperforms reality, right? Breitbart News, which is not totally fictional, but definitely spun heavily and often untrue, was the most trafficked news source on Facebook for the 3 months before our election.
Wow.
Yeah. I love these moments where I question every decision I've made in my life. It's great. It's very encouraging. Anyway, so we're gonna take a break, but when we come back, we're going to get into some policy. Joe Biden has put out his climate change policy, and there are parts of it that I really like, but there are some issues, so we're gonna get to all of it. Nice comprehensive look at that policy when we return.